Good morning, Giants. Welcome back to another episode of Wake Up with Giants TV. Have you ever been at rock bottom? Do you ever wonder if you're going to make it out of it? Can you create something with it? You're going to want to tune in. And if you don't like swear words, you might want to grab your earplugs because this will be a raw show. So join us. We're going live with Wake Up with Giants TV. Here we go. Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. I'm Nick Smith. My co-host Ryan Morris is off at another event this morning, so he won't be joining us, but we got a great guest for you today. A little bit of housekeeping, some big changes in our world. My12journeys.com is being updated as we speak, so if you can handle a little construction dust, come over there and join us because it'll be a central hub for everything. So if you're into the Giants, the Tribe of Giants, Wake Up with Giants TV, you want to grow in a new way, come over there and join us. Make sure you sign up for the free membership of our community. If you're wondering where you're at in your Giants journey, take the personality test. It's all AI driven. It'll analyze your answers and kick out a killer report on where you're at, where your strengths are, and where you can grow. And so we hope you'll be a part of that. Also this morning, let me just launch this here. We launched with Graham Turner, the Swan Men's Group, which is a group only for men all over the world. There's no agenda for this group. This is just a place for men to come together to support men. So if you're a man and you're looking for a place to connect with other men around the world, you want to be supported, your struggles, your humor, your inspiration, come do that there. We'd love to have you be a part of that. Outside of that, we are just cranking along and reviving the energy of the Tribe of Giants and more. And so we hope you'll be a part of it. Come join us on the Tribe of Giants on Facebook. I'll throw the link there at the bottom if you need to find us. And so we're here to support you. Our goal is to create a world of giants, one giant at a time. And so I'm joined in studio today with an incredible guest. We've known each other for quite a while. I've got a guest intro here that's long but worth it. You know, it's good because this dude is an amazing human. So I've got Matt Evans. He's a business and person transformation specialist, a devoted husband and father, a creator of powerful charity movements, and a guy who keeps it real with coffee in hand and a baseball cap on his head. This dude's got the mouth of a trucker, but dude, is he inspiring. I hope that's okay to say.
I'll try and play nice.
Yeah, you'll do. Hey, we'll do good. So, Matt's life didn't always look like this. Just 4 years ago, he was standing at the edge, anxious, depressed, nearly divorced, and questioning if life was even worth it. And then he changed everything. He faced the darkness, rewrote his story, and rebuilt his life from the inside out. He became the father his kids needed, the partner his wife could lean on, and through it all, he welcomed a whole new chapter with the birth of his son, Will. He let go of destructive patterns and helped others do the same, guiding people out of addiction, self-doubt, and limitation. Matt has worked with some of the world's biggest brands, Aston Martin, Caterpillar, the Guide Dog Association, while creating transformational spaces for individuals to rise. He was the driving force behind the Ultimate Experience Birmingham, raising over £37,000 for Birmingham Children's Hospital. He's known for his no-nonsense presence, his fierce love, and his mission to help people become the most efficient, powerful person and version of themselves without masking. This is more than a guest. This is a giant among giants. So please help me in welcoming the extraordinary Matt Evans. It's good to have you here, dude.
Thank you, mate. I love that. I'm gonna have to hire you to kind of announce me into rooms.
Yeah. It's just like it'd be like Monty Python. He's got the guy with the coconuts.
Yeah.
He ran from the dragon. He hid in the dark. Yeah.
Yes, we can do that.
Yeah.
We need to sort out that next time you're over, or next time I'm over your way.
We'll do it. I'm excited because, in our previous 320 episodes, we really focused in on the inner world, and we had you on as a guest in that. And there's a lot to overcome on the inner world. You know, arriving at being okay with who you are and navigating out of that. These series are more about the growth and the transformation that comes after that. And so in the 12 Journeys program, these are what we call the growth journeys and the legacy journey, because we'll talk about that too. That's the impact and the ripple you want to make in the world. And so that's where I want to dive into. And specifically, I got to be a part of your event in Birmingham, the Ultimate Experience. Yeah.
You're undercooking. I got to be part of it. You were an integral part of it. You were one of the maestros.
Thank you, man. I see this comment here. What's up with the glasses? Dude, you got to join and get the glasses. Be a part of the group here. Thank you for that. It's when you called me, I want to go back to the story. So of how this all came about. So and I'll give some framework here. So we're going to look at the 5 growth journeys of the 12 journeys, which are uncertainty, abundance, vision, surrender, and nurture. And those are integral to growth. And I remember we're going to start with the journey of uncertainty, which is that when nothing is sure, everything is possible. And can you kind of talk about when you and I talked about your idea and you had nothing but an idea, right?
Yeah.
We go into that.
Yeah, I remember that conversation. You were like one of the first 3 people on my hit list that was, right, I want, hey, I've got an idea for doing this. And I remember I was in the gym at the time and I was like, Nick, got to get hold of Nick. So I literally rang you whilst I was on a weights bench and said, I'm looking at running this thing next year. Are you in or out? And I didn't know how it was going to work. I didn't know where it was going to be, but I knew the people that I wanted with me. And you were on the hit list at the very top end of it. So you got a phone call. The uncertainty was endless. There was no certainty in any of it. It was just an idea. But as with anything, it's more about the who you have you around you, and then you work it out.
Yeah, let's play here for a little bit. When we were at the event, Chris Smith talked about possibility. Mm-hmm. And he said, and I like this, and I'd love you to expound on this, is possibility exists. Limitations are created. Can you play with that?
All day long.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, I mean, for me, when I came to running the event, creating the event, the possibility could go in every single direction. I love that. Yes, Steve. The possibility was there for it to go in every direction, and you steer the possibility. And at points, limitations were created, and at points I kind of limited myself, there's no doubt. And at times, right on cue, where there's a will, there's a way.
There's a will.
We have a will.
What's up, Will? How are you doing?
All right, give me 1 second. So,
well, there's a will, so now there's a way. So we'll bring him back here.
Never worked with kids and animals. I've done both. So, yeah. So, the possibility existed for this to go in every direction, and we knew where we wanted to go. And then there was some limitations placed on us. I can honestly say at times, I created some limitations myself.
Yeah.
And some of that was, possibly fear bound. There's no doubt. But it's so true. Once you've got that possibility and you actually believe that something is possible, what more is there? You can then just go after it.
Well, let's play here. Nassim Nicholas Taleb, the mathematician, incredible mind, talks about uncertainty. And he says that we are the empirical decision makers who hold uncertainty as our discipline, that moving forward with incomplete information is the highest and most noble human pursuit. And many of us go around our worlds looking at trying to create certainty. And the reality is that certainty just, it's an imagination, it's a construct.
Yeah. You take anything in your life and you think that it's certain,
Mm-hmm.
and you could probably rip that idea up. Doesn't matter what it is. Whether it's your job, whether it's a relationship, whether it's something that you're building as an event, that there is uncertainty in anything, and it's a construct of how you think.
Yeah.
You can create a certainty in your head. It's a thought that you're certain. It's not actually certain. And we proved this time and time again. We thought that we had certain things that were going to be nailed down and were bankers, and then there was some stuff we thought was never going to happen, and it did.
Yeah.
The whole concept of certainty, when you really stretch yourself and kind of put it out there and go for something that is bigger than what you would normally do, and you go into that uncertain world, you get a lot of lessons around what's certain and what isn't, and most of the time it isn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And we want that security and safety.
Yeah.
And they say that most people resist change even when it's good for them. And because they like the consistency, they like to know what to expect, even if that's uncomfortable. Most people will stay in something far longer than they should just because they're familiar with it.
Yeah.
And if we look at what you created with the ultimate experience, and that's what we're focused on here. And it's not about monetary success. It's not anything there. It's about taking an idea and a dream and making it a reality. And, if I look at the word success, the definition of that is a positive yield from your efforts. And there was a positive yield from that. So that's a success. A failure would be just simply a negative yield. So you'd go out and test things.
I mean, even that, the idea was it was a threefold idea. It was to run an amazing event for people with incredible people.
Yeah.
It was to hold it in a place that was, going to be something special and create a really good experience for people. And 3, to raise a load of money for charity. They were the 3 things. Now, 2 of those things are non-empirical. 2 of those things are very subjective. Only one of them was ever empirical. The money was the empirical bit around, you can put a quantifiable value to what you raise. But the other 2 things, that was down to the other people. For me, it was just about creating something that then people can come along to. And if they choose to see it as brilliant, that's on them. If they choose to see it as crap, that's on them.
Yeah.
But at least we're doing the best that we can to put it out there.
Yeah. Hanging here in the idea of the journey of uncertainty, the unknown. The not knowing what the next steps are going to be. One of my favorite studies is on slime mold. They took oats and put them on the Tokyo subway system on the stops, and slime mold. And this seems to be a law of nature. Slime mold went out in all directions to find the oats, and then as soon as it found the oats, it narrowed down the pathway to the most efficient pathways, and it lined up nearly perfectly with the pathways of the Tokyo subway system. So what it took humans decades to create, slime mold did within a short period, and it was as efficient, if not more efficient, than what humans had designed. But what I want to hold on to here is that the slime mold went out in all directions. So if you were to ask it, let's say we interviewed it at the beginning and we're like, hey, how are you going to go get those oats? It would likely say, I have no clue. I'm just going to do whatever it takes. Is there a level of knowing and unknowing when you go to strategize? So when you looked at your event, I would imagine that you had some strategies in mind of, I'm going to do this and that's going to get me to the event. Looking at the end, but from the beginning, does that make sense?
Yeah, you have an outline, you have an idea of, if I go from A to B to C, do X, Y, and Z, then you're going to get certain outcomes. And it's like everything. It's theory and test.
Right.
You've got a theory, you go and do it, you test it, and sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. And it's about having the ability to be agile enough not to hold on to all the old theories that you think that should have worked.
Yeah.
there was so many times where we had an idea that was right, we're going to do this and it should do this, and it didn't work. And it was like, right, okay, instead of going, why didn't it work, and constantly trying to go, right, let's hold on to that and grasp that idea and do something different and just tweak it. Quite often there was okay, we need to do something seriously different here. So
Yeah.
rather than kind of staying on the path, but just going a little bit off the path, it's still the path, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Rather than going in a different direction. And that was the thing. It was being open enough to have a different direction rather than trying to constantly go the same way in a different way.
Yeah. So there's, when we look at the 12 journeys, we teach them linearly. So we go uncertainty, abundance, vision, surrender. But when you're using the 12 journeys in your life, you'll go from uncertainties to surrender, right?
Yeah.
So if we look at surrender here, which is to render over, um, you didn't know. I mean, you had an idea of what you were going to try and test and go out there and do it, but you had to let go, because if that didn't work, you had to adapt. And part
Yeah.
of surrender is you don't know if your pathway is going to work. And then when you test it and it doesn't work, then what do you do from there? And what would you advise somebody? So looking at your event, or even other areas, Matt, like what would you advise them?
It's down to the attachment.
Okay.
I mean, you look at what happened with Birmingham. I mean, you know exactly what happened behind the scenes. We'd lined up one of the best places we could get hold of to host this thing, and it all came horrifically crashing down. And we could have said, right, we're going to hold on to that idea. We're going to still do that and change how it looks in terms of the event itself and the thing. And we'd change, so much around that path. But we knew deep down that wasn't the way to do it. We
Yeah.
knew it wasn't going to be the experience. It wasn't going to give us the outcome that we really wanted. If we stuck with the original venue, we wouldn't raise the money. We wouldn't have the experience. Now, we could have held on to it going, it's an amazing place.
It has to go this way, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I wanted it more than anyone. It was a huge stage. It was going to be,
it's beautiful.
it had an amazing kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
And, out of service to everybody, it wasn't the right place. And we had to let go of that. I could have strangled the whole event by grasping onto that's what I thought in the first place, and I want that. And actually, I couldn't have asked for a better lesson in letting go of the attachment to that idea and thinking that's the way it has to be, and that's the way it can only be, and that's what I want, and that means a lot.
Yeah.
And there's so much story that could have been wrapped up in that, to then just go, all right, change your plan. We're going somewhere else, and that's it. And actually, the thing that was really fundamental was once we changed, not then still mentally going back, going, "Oh, I wish it was there. Oh, I wish it was there. If only it was there."
Yeah.
That was the thing, because you could have ended up like not putting all your energy into creating the new, because you're still going round and round
Ooh,
mentally on the old.
that's huge right there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And it was like, right, this is the new stuff, and let's make the new stuff work. Go.
Yeah. Charles Darwin, he says it's not the most intelligent or the strongest that survive. It's the most adaptable to change.
Yep,
Right.
absolutely.
And if you look at that event, there were so many adaptations, even at the day of the event. And while the event was going on, there were adaptations. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump ahead to another journey here, because we're going to go back and forth between these. But the journey of nurture is the care and attention given to your creation and yourself, because sometimes we'll give everything to our creation at the cost of us. And
Mhm.
I'm wondering, how did you balance that, and what's your philosophy around that nurture and self-care and the care of your creation? How did you juggle that?
Um,
It's really quite hard. I mean, once you are all in on something that matters so much, you know that you've got an end, you've got an outcome, and you are in a sprint.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit, I can compare it to almost a sprint because, when you're sprinting, you're in anaerobic work. Your muscles are firing, you're not using oxygen, you're building up acid, and you hurt at times.
Yeah.
You get that pain in your legs and you cramp up, and all these things happen because it's only sustainable in a short manner.
Right.
Now, as much as Birmingham was a year long, effectively, it did feel like a long sprint. The one thing I will say is that I had an amazing group of people around me who helped keep me sane with an awful lot of it. So, the team I had were phenomenal. The four kind of leads that I'd got Fiona always with me as well. She was
Yeah.
brilliant. At home, Kate was incredible. She took so much more strain in terms of all the stuff at home and with the kids, that enabled me to be able to do all the stuff that I was doing with everybody behind the scenes. So, yeah, there is an element to it where, yes, you make time to look after yourself. For me, it was always about trying to get to the gym if I can, and just trying to find some downtime. But I also knew that it was a sprint with an end, and it was finish line coming at all cost.
Yeah, so I'm gonna give it a little twist here. In our journeys, and this is all based on the book, The Giants and the Smalls. One thing we say is giants still take small steps; they're just bigger.
Yep.
Uh, I had talked to a gentleman years ago on the book, The Art of Accomplishment. I shared a story called 111, one of my
Mm.
chapters in there, and it was Craig Zablocki. Man, I can't believe I remember the name here. This is over a decade ago. But Craig Zablocki said that he had a client who had a fitness goal of doing one push-up, one sit-up, one jumping jack every day. That was his fitness goal. And he said, if I could at least get one push-up, one sit-up, one jumping jack, then I've reached my fitness goal. And sometimes he would only do that, but at a minimum, he would do that. And then if he did more, he would do more. And he was talking to this guy in the hospital. He gets up out of the hospital bed, does a push up, a sit up, and a jumping jack, and gets back in bed, right? And kept his commitment to that goal. And we named our company Mandelbrot after the mathematician Benoit Mandelbrot. And in his equation, he takes two numbers, adds them together, creates an outcome, adds that back into the equation, does it again, and creates another outcome. And that complexity gets created. It's called a Mandelbrot set. It's the formula for life. And it's small steps repeated create the complexity of life. So nurture, in addition to what you just talked about, the self-care, getting to the gym, is one step. Were there days that you're just like, I don't know what I'm going to do? And
Yeah.
you took a step anyway.
And that's part of it. It was when we were kind of rebuilding, there was so much that was, oh, this feels like a slog, and you do it anyway.
Yeah.
There was times when it was, hitting up people, enrolling people, call it enrollment, call it ticket sales, whatever you want.
Yeah.
There was times when you were just like, oh man, I just don't want to be doing this. But you're on a countdown, you're on a timer, that you've got D-Day coming up, and it's like, build the room, maximize the value, get the most people that you can there. You want to make it an amazing experience. You've got all these things, and you're doing it from a place of service, and that's what keeps you grounded as well.
Yeah. So let's jump to the journey of vision. Okay. So when you called me and you're at the gym, I mean, you were well in the vision, the creation of the vision. We had, it's Catherine Lee on our show, and she talked about, creating vision so clear that it becomes a memory of things yet to be. And I would imagine when you started this, you had a vision of what you were creating, but to have it be so clear that it was like having a memory, I don't think you were even there. And you just had an idea of, this is what I want to create. Am I wrong?
okay, so my ADHD brain had many visions and many ideas,
Yeah.
and that was within about 4 seconds. But
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean that was the
Yeah.
yeah. You know, the first vision for it was the big venue. It was, you know,
Mm.
proper fireworks, huge videos. I'd even got a drum line lined up to be an intro and stuff. You know, I'd got all sorts of
Yeah.
crazy
Yeah.
ideas going on that I was like, right, this is going to be mental and brilliant. And so, yeah, there was all that was in the vision of possibility and in it's a reality. It can be a reality. And there was so much within that.
Yeah.
And then it got changed.
Mm.
And that was okay too. You know, there was that initial vision of this is the way to do it and this is what we want. You know, 1,500 people in a room with
Right.
everything around it. And, you know, I mean, we'd got the venue, we got the space, we went and visited it. And it was like, I stood on the stage going, this is the stage that we want to produce this on. You know, and it was like, okay, you know, when you stand there and you see it and you go, this is the vision, and you go, yep, yeah, you get it. You have
Yeah.
that vision and you know what you need to do to get to it. And then
Now,
sometimes,
yeah, keep going. Keep going. Finish
and I
that
was
up.
going to say, and it goes back to that point, you know, you can have that vision that is so clear, and yet if it gets ripped away, oh, don't hold on to it.
Yeah. Okay. So there's an attachment and an unattachment to the visions. That's part of the surrender journey. Is you know what you want to create, but if it shifts or looks a little different, then you kind of shift and adapt to it. Is that what
Yeah,
you're saying?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Although I will caveat that, right?
Yeah.
That was the vision in the materialistic view. The vision in
Okay.
the materialistic view was the venue, the tricks, the audio, the visual, the
Right.
production. That was the vision for the production, and yet the vision for the feel never changed. The
Okay. Yeah.
feel was
Explain that.
always okay. So the vision for the feel was always about life-changing people delivering their story full of love, possibility, and, you know, amazing stories from amazing people.
Yeah.
Opening up the possibility of whoever was in the room, they could walk out with a new possibility. That was the feel, and that never did change. So, as much as the material side went completely in a different direction, the actual heart-led feel side of it, the core reason for that event ever being, didn't change.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. So now we're going to jump ahead to the journey of legacy, or the legacy journey, which is the 12th journey, which is the impact and ripple that you want to make. And I feel like vision and impact or legacy tend to go hand in hand, because you have values and core principles that guide you, and they align with that vision, and they don't go away. Right. So the feel, that's what I hear in that. I think, as Pablo Picasso says, the meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away. And if we look at ripple and impact from what that event created, you didn't know the impact going in, but you did have an idea of the impact you wanted to make, but you didn't know the impact after the event. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like, how did your vision, or how did your legacy and impact align with all of this?
So the impact was always to have people in the room who would then go out and do something with it to then, you know, change someone else's life.
Yeah.
It was always about, if you can make one person go out there and do something different, something good, and change one thing in someone else's life in a different way and lead that ripple, that was it. And even if they then go to 2 people, I mean, this is what I said. I think I said it on stage even, you know, if every person in that room went out and did something that changed 2 people, and then they did something that changed 2 people, you know, you're on an exponential shift in ripples throughout people's lives.
You can't see it, right? You can't
No.
see where that goes.
And you know what? I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
You know, I know that we delivered something that had the potential to do that, and potential is then up to other people to then take it forward. I can't then do anything with them. So it was always about creating the event that enabled the possibility, gave the potential, and then it's on everybody else to actually go and deliver that as well.
Yeah, so they've got to do their own legacy. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the role of a leader, isn't it? You empower other people to then go and do something. And it's not about constantly going and checking up on people and saying, what have you done? What have you done? What have you done? Have you gone and done something? But it's about giving them the ability to understand that they can make a difference.
Yeah. So I think people get that confused. They think leadership they think enrollment is manipulating people to get the outcome you want. But enrollment is getting people to see how this impacts them, and then seeing how they can then take that and impact others, versus a manipulation to get something out of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we go back to the whole core subject that the event was based around, who you're being. I don't know if Steve's still on here with us, but the whole event was foundationally based around the work of everything that Steve Hardison has taught and everybody around him, and the Ultimate Coach book. It all came down to, who are you being? It's not who are we being for you. It is who are you being? Who are you going to go and be in the future that then creates a difference?
Yeah.
So it was about asking people the question rather than trying to give them an answer or even tell them what to do.
Yeah. That's one thing. So in this book, The Giants and the Smalls, when I wrote that, the first thing I put in there was questions. When the small looked up at the giants, he saw them, the questions, and this is the beauty of the human mind, opened up this pathway. What is it called? I think it's called the Zeidegger effect, is where when you have an open loop on a question, the mind won't rest until it's solved or answered. And that's why waiters or waitresses, they can remember a whole order, but once they fulfill the order, they forget it. And so we do that as humans. Is the questions are so powerful because they get us to start looking at, well, can I do that? How can I do that? What's possible? I think too many of us though get stuck on the how. And so we don't vision. Jen Walter calls it the how hole. We get stuck in the how hole,
That's brilliant.
And then we don't get to our vision because the only thing we can see is, well, how am I going to do it? And then it eliminates the vision and we don't really arrive there. So let's talk about vision here again. Is you had enough of a vision and the emotional feeling for that vision, the impact, that was plenty. Am I wrong?
That was plenty. I think there's a third thing for it though.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a vision and impact, and you've got to have a desire for it. It's got to mean something to you.
Yeah. Okay.
You could have a vision and an impact and go, yeah, okay, that could be cool and that'd do that. But if you don't really want it, you're never going to go after it.
Okay, that's important right there, right? The word desire, of siring, right? To sire, to give birth to, essentially, to inseminate is what it means. To really give seed to your dream and vision, whatever that is. And whoever's listening to this, you're going to have your own version of that dream and vision versus a want, and the word want means to be without. And so if you look at the two words, you have a desire or a want. When somebody tells me they want something, I know immediately what they don't have. And when they say they don't want something, I know immediately what they have in their life, just on that word. And sometimes we turn our dreams and visions into wants, withouts. And then we start focusing on the withouts of that vision. And then we let that drive and it kills the vision.
There's also the third part of that, in that if it becomes a need, then you're really fucked.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. Expand. Yeah, go a little further there.
So if everything went completely south and I allowed all of this to be a need rather than a desire or even a want,
that would have crushed my soul if it didn't happen, because it would have been a need that was unfulfilled, and it probably would have been what that makes me. And there's not allowing that to happen. So if you get to the point where you're thinking that you need it, that is a hellhole to get into.
Okay, I like that. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is coming up heavy right here. What we tend to do, so we have needs. Okay,
Yep.
I need to eat. I need
Yep.
to drink water. I need to breathe. I
Yep.
need to have shelter. Yeah, I need to have some level of safety and security. Those are needs. But what I hear described in this is we take a dream and we turn it into one of those, like it's an essential life force. And if I don't have it, I'm gonna die. Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that can be a very tricky route that you then start. If you don't get to it, again, it's back to the having the no attachment thing. If you don't have it, you can then start saying, well, what does that make me? Because I couldn't do it and I didn't do it, and therefore my need was unfulfilled. And it could have all gone so horribly wrong. And it didn't.
In so many ways. And it did. It did. Things went horribly wrong.
Things went horrifically wrong. I mean, I nearly ended up on the back of a lawsuit for the value of my house. I mean, it was like, but it didn't, and it was all okay. But yeah, I mean, you know what? I did go through that, and that's why I can sit here and say it so genuinely, that kind of last January when there was all that going on, and we did think about, I had to have a very strong discussion with myself and a very strong pep talk from Karan Rai. That was brilliant. And it was around you don't need it. And, you could walk away from this and it's not going to affect anything about who you are. You're still you. It's all okay. You don't need this. And I was like, no, I don't need it, but I really want to do it. And it was like, well, that's a different conversation. It's a very interesting, tricky one when you get into desire one and cross off need.
Yeah. Oof. Okay, so if I'm looking at the pathway to creation here, it starts with essentially a vision. So hope theory says that when you have a clear vision of the future, you not only know that the future is going to be brighter, you're the one that's going to create it. And finally, you'll overcome any obstacle to make it a reality. But if you don't have a clear enough vision, then it's hard to generate hope. And without hope, we don't have drive. We don't have desire. And so if I looked at my vision and dream and I thought, it would be nice one day if, but I don't think I'm the guy to do that. I am not going to put any energy into that. And I think too many people, they want to get into the how. Well, how do I do it? Tell me how. The internet is stocked full of all the hows.
Yeah.
But we allow that to be our reasoning and justification for not going after it.
Yeah, I think it's Townsend Wardlaw who said something about how is like the lowest form of question. We talk about the questions, what you base your life on, and the quality of your questions determines the quality of your life. And I always remember Townsend once saying about how is the lowest level of question. Don't ask me a how. It's like the who, the what, the where, the where, anything. All these different questions you can go through, and it's like, how's low level?
And you don't know how. When you step into it, the journey of uncertainty is you're not meant to know how, like Nassim Nicholas Taleb said.
If you're always asking how do I do it, and you're just finding out how do I do it, that's kind of task management.
Yeah,
it's task management. It's not going to really push you. It's not going to really stretch you, I guess. If you're not asking a bigger question, you're not going to be playing a bigger game.
Okay, so let's talk about the journey of abundance. So we've covered all the other ones on the growth journeys, right? So the journey of abundance, when I heard that word in the past, abundant, and overflowing, I always put it in the context of money. If I'm abundant with money. But I've learned through the journeys and through my own studies is that abundance is, who said, I think it was Wayne Dyer said that abundance is the default nature of all things. And, if you look at the laws of thermodynamics, the law states that energy is neither created nor destroyed. It is only transformed
Transferred. Yeah.
from one form to another. So I like to use the example, everything in my space, everything, this microphone, everything at one point was chaos. Like Richard Paul Evans says, chaos is the mine of creation. And so if we start to see that abundance is the default nature of the universe, and that everything we need, all the people, resources, materials, opportunities are already here, then we get to transform them from the form they're in into what we have in mind. But if you can't see the abundance, then you start to think there's not enough to create what I want. There's not enough people. There's not enough materials. But everything, your hats, these hats that you made for the event, they didn't exist in this form prior to somebody taking the abundance that was and transforming it. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. And I think it's quite interesting because that abundance, you've got abundance into abundance. Like you say, it takes energy to transform things. So energy is only ever transformed, but you've got a web of transformation.
Yeah.
To create the abundance that, we did, it took numerous people with numerous transformations and numerous transfers of energy and things to actually get to that outcome. And I do think that there's sometimes where you get it almost is created. The energy that we put in versus the energy that it then created as an event.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that this is one of those where the end result is greater than the sum of the parts almost.
Yeah. Go a little deeper on that one.
So, I mean, nearly a year on, right? I've had people that still message me saying, hey, this happened to me because of what happened in Birmingham.
Yeah.
No, some of those ripples are pretty far and pretty wide. And I just look back at it and think, well, the amount of energy that it created and the amount of change that it's created, actually, is that the same or more than what was put into it? I don't know. And I'll never know. But, when you get those messages from people that are like thousands of miles away going, hey, you don't know who I am, but this happened. And it's like, oh, wow.
Yeah. So impact and ripple, in my mind, and maybe help me expand this, is that when I transform the universe around me into what I have in mind, the show, these are all, they didn't exist until an idea was created and we took the ethereal and made it material. But nothing of it is original. I didn't create StreamYard. I didn't create microphones or videos. I didn't have to take any of that and pull that into reality. Elon Musk doesn't have to create Mars to go fly to Mars. It's already there, right? So, you think of that is you take and transform the raw materials. There's a beautiful quote. Thomas Monson, I think, said it, that God gave us the gift of raw materials. He left the electricity in the clouds, the buildings in the trees, the forests unfelled, the roads uncarved, to give men the challenge of raw materials. And if you look at that, you take and transform the raw materials into what you have in mind. And then that somebody else takes what you transformed and transformed that into something else. And that's the ripple. It's not like the universe got more abundant, but in a way it did. It just new things started coming in because we started creating with the raw materials things that never existed before.
It gave it the root for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And Karan Rai talked about that, the radical commitment, and the word radical means root.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go into that a little bit. What do you mean he gave the root for it? Like, expand. Go a little further.
Well, I mean, it's that thing, isn't it? Every single ripple is the event of someone coming up to a door and going through it. And each time that you you enable that person to do something different, to actually go through a door that they wouldn't have gone before, that's your route. Your route is a series of doors and roads that you take. And sometimes it's just helping people see that there's actually the door in front of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So this is cool stuff, because you look at what was the outcome, and the many ways that didn't work. Dyson, the creator of the vacuum, created 5,100 models before he got to one that worked. Oak trees lay 10,000 seeds and only one takes every year. Sea turtles lay 1,000 eggs and only one lives to adulthood. And there seems to be this natural principle of life and nature, that there is an abundance of effort and energy that goes out, and only a small percentage might actually produce additional fruit. But the fruit that it produces is far beyond anything that was lost. I mean, we're examples of that. Human beings are examples of that, right? I wouldn't be here if there wasn't a large amount of waste. And it's not, do you know what I mean?
What a way to put it, Nick.
Yeah.
I'm a byproduct.
I'm a byproduct, but it still is everybody else. But talk about that, because it wasn't like, Matt, you came up with this idea and then you're like, oh, I have this great vision, it's going to go great. And then you stepped onto your goals and tasks that you had developed, your strategy, and you started down that path, and it went exactly the way that you planned it from start to finish.
Oh, if only.
Oh my gosh, right?
Actually, no, that's something, isn't it? I say, oh, if only, jokingly.
Yeah.
But it's not if only, because some of the most amazing lessons that I have ever had came from when the shit hit the fan. You know, it was brilliant.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually one of the biggest reframes I think anyone can ever go through, that when it doesn't go right and you're not in that goal and task monotony, and you're not in the cruising, it's all just working, you know what? That's where the growth is. When, you know, that break and repair, it comes back stronger. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's the learning.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the adaptation. I think too many people put their dreams on hold because they can't see the pathway to creation. And I don't think you're meant to.
I think, being really honest, I think the biggest thing that I had to overcome, that first step, was always the fear of what if it doesn't work.
Yeah. And how did you navigate that?
Well, you just do it anyway, don't you? I mean, it's literally, you are taking a giant, great big leap into the unknown. I remember when me and Fee were outside the ICC launching it, you know, we did a live video that says, right, we are going and we are running with this, and this is happening, people. And when we stopped, it was like, oh shit, we are now balls deep. There's no, not that there's no coming back from it, you know, and like I say, anything could have stopped it, but it was right, it's there, we're going after it, you're in it, and there's almost a okay, and now we're in it. It actually, the fear is the first step. The fear is not the in it. The fear is just that first point. Because once you are actually in it, you're then like, okay, we're in it. Let's go.
Yeah.
And there's so much mental drain about taking the first step that it's never as scary to take the first step.
So we create the fear of the first step.
Yeah, massively.
Yeah.
We create the fear of the first step because we get attached to what the outcome might be and what it makes about us.
If it goes bad.
Yeah.
Or what we deem as bad.
Yeah.
Yet, okay, so looking at a pathway here, and that's what I like about the growth and legacy journeys, is that when you start to see that this is all part of that creative process, is that uncertainty is inevitable, but uncertainty, when nothing is sure, like Margaret Drabble says, when nothing is sure, everything is possible. And like Chris Smith says, possibility exists and limitations are created. And, even going into what Nassim Nicholas Taleb says is that, we hold that moving forward with incomplete information is the highest and most noble human pursuit. Uncertainty is the way. And you're not meant to see in front of you. If I had to see every step I had to take to get to this show today, I would have probably been so overwhelmed that I might not have stepped. If I knew I had to do everything I had to do to be on this show today with you, holy crap, dude. You talk about massive amounts of effort that got us here today, and massive amounts of things that didn't go the way I thought they would. But yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, but this, me and you talking today is the result of something not quite working right. Yeah. And just, a random message and a random hey, and here we are. So much comes from just allowing that flow rather than grasping at it should have been this way. You could have quite easily just gone, I'm not going to do it today because, Ryan's not here and this and that. And you could have not done it. And yet, within one simple conversation that came up out of nowhere, here we are.
Yeah. Yep. And that's how life gets created.
Yeah.
And so now looking at the process here, and it's not even a process because we get stuck in that linear, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do this. It's not that. You're going to bounce around. You're going to go from uncertainty, you're going to go to vision, which is seeing in whatever way that is. Some people have aphantasia where they can't see images. So don't think of vision as seeing things. It's just connecting with what you're creating. Like you said, the feeling. And then you look at abundance. Well, what resources do I have? There is nothing inaccessible to you. It's a matter of taking what's already there and getting access to it, creating access to it, and then transforming it. And then it goes into surrender, where the journey of surrender is all about letting go of the control over how you think it should go, but not letting go of the vision. And then you go into nurture, which is small steps, self-care, creation care. And then ultimately the impact, the legacy journey is about the ripple that the creation of that vision is going to have on even one person, right? We get these grand goals of, and ours was, we're going to impact 100 million lives globally. And we shifted that to, no, we're going to impact one. And that came from the TUE event. That birthed right there, because I remember Dominic London getting up there and I'm like, holy crap, dude, here's a dude with facing schizophrenia, crushing it in the world, facing a mental illness that most people can't understand. And his only impact or goal is to impact one person. I'm like, I'm adopting that,
It's the one person right in front of you at the time.
Yeah. And we got to do that with a room full of people because you had an idea at the gym and you weren't even fully complete on it. And you called me and I'm like, yeah, I'm in. I had no idea.
I'll let you into a secret. Even up to the day before, I still wasn't complete on it. It was still like, okay, what can we do?
That's beautiful. I would like you to talk about some of the outcomes of that event. What was created? What happened because of that event in your world, in the worlds of others, the Children's Hospital? Can you speak to that and the people in the room?
I mean, so the headline tangible is we gave £37,000 to the Children's Hospital. And also, courtesy of an amazing author called Nicholas Smith, we gave them 400 copies of an amazing book for children. Did you hear about that? There's this guy called Nick Smith who wrote a book called The Giants and the Smalls, and it's the best book for children and adults I think I've ever read in my life. And this guy called Nick gave us the print rights so that we could print hundreds of copies to give to the Children's Hospital on World Book Day. Did you hear about that? It was amazing.
That got me emotional.
So you should be. It's an amazing book, mate.
Yeah,
and
Yeah, so, you know, hundreds of kids in that hospital were given, you know, something that gave them the idea of what could be possible in a story form. For sick kids, Jesus Christ, that's what they need.
Yeah.
You know, when you're spending your life in hospital, having that there can be a different way, that's priceless. You can't put a money on that. At the event, there was one guy who came up to me at the event actually on the Saturday.
Yeah.
On the Saturday afternoon. And he literally came up, gave me a hug, and burst into tears saying, "This is going to change my life, and it's going to change the relationship I have with my son." And I was just like, well, I mean, because it's kind of crazy. As much as, you know, as much as I was in the event, I wasn't in the event. You know, I was running around doing all sorts of stuff, as you know. And I kind of, because I'd not sat hearing so much of it, to have someone come up to me literally at that moment and go, "This is going to change my life," I was like, shit. That's when it became so real that it was like, this is good. Yeah. You know, me and Rose, we had a moment on the Sunday, you know, early on the Sunday morning, first break. Everyone was buzzing. You know, there was such an energy around the place. You know, people had been in it for kind of a day and a morning. And, you know, people were starting to connect and have all these different stories about what they're going to do with it all. And you could just feel it. And me and her stood in the middle of the room. And I remember she gave me a big hug and she was just like, "We've done it." She was like, this is it. You've done it.
Look at this. Dominant.
Hey, Mr. London. Amazing.
Speak of the man who shows up. Love it.
And I mean, Dom's story about the event was amazing because, you know, he stood up on stage. He was one of the first speakers on Saturday, you know, and when you talk about like stories from the event,
yeah,
him as a speaker was brilliant because he actually stood up on stage and was like, "I wasn't going to do this." It goes back to our fear bit. You know, Dom was so open and honest about, you know, I was going to call Matt and tell him I'm not doing it. Well, Matt would have gone and dragged him out of his hotel room. There was no way he was leaving him behind. But,
yeah,
you know, it's Dom was an absolute essence of that. You're in fear. Who am I to do this? What am I going to do? And he got up there and did it. And it was like, you know, you step on, you get up there, and you get going.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, I mean, and like I say, I still get messages from people. We've got all the videos that are out and available, and you know, you can go and see every speaker that we had.
They're incredible. Dom is instrumental. He was the reason I was there.
Yeah,
Dom helped me get to the UK. And when he got up on stage and spoke without notes, I'm like, I want to do that. Man, I just like, I love to copy people, it sounds like. But I had something written on my sheet too. If you remember on the MC, at the top of every paper, I had written, "You can't be nervous when you're in service." And I think it was Chris Doris that originally, I don't know if he originally said it, but that shifted everything. When I got to be up there and MC, all my nerves about what people might think about me, what they might say, what, you know, am I doing it right? They went out the window because that statement shifted it to, this isn't about you, dude. When Dom got on stage, it wasn't about him. He was 100% about the person in the chair.
Yeah.
And you were 100% about the person in the chair. And every person in that room was 100% about that person in that chair. And every speaker came from service. And you could feel the ripple in that room. You could feel the energy like already starting to bust out of that room.
There was a reason why every single person was handpicked in that room, like speaker wise.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah. If we look back on the whole experience, and there's a person across the screen right now as we're getting to wrap up here, what would you say to somebody that's taking a dream and bringing it into reality? Maybe something that should have been talked about or could have been talked about, or is just saying, say this, Matt, what would that be?
I guess there's two things. There's the one that, you know, we've learned and loved from Steve. That's, you speak it into being. The more you talk it, the more that you speak it, the more that you openly put it out there, the more it's going to stick and the more it's going to become. And the other one is, my team will laugh about this one. It's not about you. You know, we had so many discussions when we were putting this together and doing what we did, that there was so much that was, it's not about you, it's about being in service. And, you know, we often had a joke about it, but if you are putting something together, if you are doing something in the world, if you do have something to put out there, it's about the service. It's not about you. And even if it goes wrong, it's not about you, because does it ever really go wrong? No. You might have some lessons. It might not go how you first thought, but it's not about it going wrong. It's not about you being a failure and all those stories that you might tell yourself. It's not about you.
Yeah. That right there, if people just hung on to that, whatever you create isn't about you. I think of so many examples of that in the world, of people that created and in their lifetimes never saw the fruits of their efforts. Emily Dickinson comes to mind. She wasn't even discovered her writings until 90 years after she had passed away. And you think about the impact that she never made in her lifetime, but it wasn't about her, you know. And so this event, the energy from that event isn't done. It's still rippling out. We just can't see it. That ripple's still going. And so, Matt, I love this. You know, it's when you look at our 12 journeys and you go into the root journeys and you're just like, oh, okay, I got to get okay with who I am. I love that. I love the hat, dude. You go into the who you are and who you think you are, and then you start to develop an okayness with that. And then you step into the space of, well, what would I like to create in my world? And now it's a whole new set of experiences. And that's what we talked about today is, well, how do you do that? And it's not about the how, it's about, like you say, that desire, the vision, and enough of a vision to feel it. It doesn't have to be a perfect vision, and a surrendering to, this is going to go exactly like it should.
Yeah.
And the ripple that you're going to make, you don't get to always see that. So you get to just trust and step anyway. And yeah, he says, is there a white buffalo hat? We got
I've got a white tiger, if that's close enough. I've got a white tiger. I've got a bull. We can go with a bull. We've got white tiger or bull.
Well, for those that are watching, go check out Matt at differentfocus.co.uk. That's his website. As always, come join us in the Tribe of Giants on Facebook. It's the Tribe of Giants Facebook group. You can find all of this at my12journeys.com. So make sure you come over there and take the personality test. See what your giant status is right now. Like, where are you at in your journey? And try that on. See where you're at. See where you need to grow, where you have potential for growth. And as always, just tune in. We're doing this every Sunday. We've been doing it for 5 years. We have over 320 interviews just like this. And this one's focused on the growth series, where we actually teach you principles for creating your dreams and bringing them into reality. And so, Matt, thank you so much for being a part of this. And for those that are watching, thank you for your comments and your energy and for sharing this with people you know. Make sure you head over to YouTube and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, that helps us to get even more reach So when you subscribe, YouTube allows us to get more expansion, more views. And so we need your help filling up the subscriber base over there. See if we got a few more comments. There's Matt Clemmer. Hi, Matt. Nice to see you. And then we got Hugh Jacobson. You're very welcome, guys. Thank you for being a part of this with us. Go make it a giant day, and we will see you in the next episode. Take care.